Yeah, please.
Okay. Okay, so a very good evening to everyone. I welcome you all to this very special evening talk. And today we are here with another interesting topic, very pertinent topic that will be of great interest to all professionals. And the topic is developing Gen Next leaders. To speak on this topic, we have a very distinguished guest, Mr. Bartanu Das, who's the head HR of Larsen and Toubro L&T. Right? So I welcome you, Mr. Das. A warm welcome to you. Thank you so much for coming. So friends, our Gen Next has certain distinct characteristics. They're looking for work-life balance. They place importance on tasks rather than time. They are very technical savvy. They are risk-taking. They have a passion for learning. They are social media savvy. But they have a short attention span. They value meaningful motivation and making an effort to attract and retain millennials, will pay rich dividends because we are investing in our future leadership and the success of our organization. So let's listen to Mr. Bartanu Das that how he has designed development of Gen Next leaders in L&T, which is one of the most professional organizations of India. And this is a matter of record, and we should remember that L&T has been a pioneer in introducing HRD concepts in the Indian industry. And I've heard that Mr. T.V. Rao, Dr. T.V. Rao and late Shri Uday Parekh, who were the consultants to L&T in the 70s and early 80s, and were pioneering push. Mr. Jain, are you there?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Pratima ji. Good evening, friends. I, on behalf of Management Committee of ISTD Delhi chapter, welcome you all to this evening lecture by the member, on a very interesting and important topic, developing Gen Next leaders by Mr. Bartanu Das, Head HR L&T. Friends, Indian Society for Training and Development, ISTD, has celebrated its Golden Jubilee very recently. ISTD maintained a large chapter network for more than 46 chapters and 9,000 institutional and individual members. The society is affiliated to IFTDO USA and RTDO Manila. The society published a quarterly journal, Indian Journal of Training and Development. ISTD conducts a diploma in training and development, a correspondence course through distance learning of 18 months duration for the purpose of recruitment to superior posts under the central government and PSUs. 85th batch admissions are going on and last date is 14th August. ISTD organizes training programs, regional and national conference, train the trainer certification program, both at chapter and national level. Friends, you can enroll yourself paying less than 10,000 rupees for life membership. For more detail, please log into istd.in or istddaily.in. I once again welcome Mr. Bartanu Das to this evening lecture, our President Emeritus, past presidents, chapter chairperson, NC members, senior members and friends from ISTD, NIPM, NHRD, ISTD diploma student, faculty members and students from various institutes. I wish you all for a wonderful evening and joyful weekend. Namaskar. Over to Pratima ji.
Thank you, Mr. Jain. Thanks a lot. So now I would request Yashwant Chauhan to formally introduce the speaker. Yashwant, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Pratima ma'am, and very warm good evening to everyone. It's amazing to be part of this session, which is on the future young leaders and developing the next generation. I now have the pleasure of introducing our esteemed speaker for the day, who happens to be none other than Bertanu Das sir. Bertanu Das sir, he is currently heading the HR function at Larsen & Toubro in one of their companies for as heavy civil infrastructure, which is an independent company into the construction business of L&T. Prior to that, he was working as Senior Vice President and also heading HR function at Blue Dart Express Limited. And he has more than 3 decades of very rich experience with great organizations like National Thermal Corporation Limited, which is NTPC, then Reliance Industries Limited, and also the Blue Dart. And he had a very diverse experience, I would say, in the field of human resource management, total quality management, industrial relations, organizational development, etc. During his various working with all these organizations, he has been associated with very reputed consulting organizations like Ernst & Young, David Associates, during various assignments in all these organizations. He has been actively part of various industry forums. He has been the regional vice president for NHRD from the West Zone, and also the vice chairman for the Mumbai Chambers of Commerce. He has also been associated with the NHRDN's Delhi NCR chapter into their core committee way back in 2004-5. Bertanu sir, he has been quite active in also pursuing the dream of disseminating the knowledge to the younger generation as such, and he has had numerous talks at various institutions of very high repute, such as Institute of IIMs, XLRI, PISS, National HRD Network, World HRD Congress. So there are so many hats which he's wearing actually, and we are really grateful to have him, sir, and we look forward to the great insights on this exciting theme for today's session. Sir is also a very great leader and a learner, and also he loves bicycling and farming. So that's really fantastic. We look forward to an exciting session and learn from everyone. Thank you so much. Over to you, sir.
Over to you, Dr.
Hello.
Yeah, Mr. Das, please go ahead.
Yeah,
Okay.
please go ahead.
Good evening, all the senior colleagues and eminent members of ISTD, Mr. Jain, Mr. Deepak Bahara, Cornel Lamba, Wain Kausal sir, Dr. Abrol, Mr. Sahu, Dr. Akhil Bursai, and many other senior and eminent persons present today for this evening talk. I am really very happy and very honored, and it's a great opportunity for me to have been invited to be part of this evening talk. What I'll do is I will share some of the emerging trends, especially mostly experiential, and the way things have been evolving in last 1 to 1.5 years, and the challenges that entire corporate sector, social sector, and entire community and human race as a whole is facing today. And then what are the imperatives or the learnings that we are getting from all these environmental situations, and what are its impact on the leadership, and how do we develop, how do we stitch the thread of leadership development in order to face this kind of situations in future. If I have to recall that, leadership is a very important subject in all ages. And in corporate world also, leadership has remained at the center stage of organizational development. But of late, I think this subject, especially leadership at all levels, the leaders who are purposeful, driven by purpose, driven by a social and community cause, and and overall balance for the society are the requirement. So before, what I'll do is, I have a presentations. I'll share some of the slides, and during the slides also, we have conceptualized a very integrated model of leadership development. Larsen and Toubro, we spend, like someone said, that we are one of the most what we call leading organizations who believes in human resource development, right from Dr. T.V. Rao and Mr. Parikh. Everyone has been associated from the beginning. A lot of investments are made for human and organizational development. A lot of programs are there. We have our own leadership academy. So we have developed and running, and we are running what we call a lot of initiatives for assessment for 17,000 plus managers that we have done, and then bringing them into 7-step leadership program that we have. The experience that I will share from an independent company, Heavy Civil Infrastructure, who is also growing manifold due to thrust on infrastructure development by central government and our country, that kind of infrastructure that is requiring. And therefore, the challenges, not only with respect to the business, but also the challenges now transcends beyond the boundary of the business. So the presentations then that I'll be talking about, just give me a minute, I'll just share the presentations. Is it visible, sir, my presentation?
Yes, sir.
It's visible.
Yeah. I have some 7-8 slides. Very quickly, I'd run it through, and maybe my focus would be also to learn something back from the eminent panel of ISTD and other participants are there, maybe, through a question and answer session. All of us know about this VUCA world. The magnitude of VUCA-ness, or the, what we call the magnitude of challenges of VUCA, volatility and uncertainty, has grown beyond the scale that we were talking about 2 years before, 1.5 years before. And with this COVID coming in and engulfing the entire globe, I think the VUCA concept and its boundary has gone much wider, much bigger, and anticipation, one word that in leadership and management we use to talk, probably is no more relevant in the kind of VUCA that we saw. So therefore, how do we really face this kind of situations? Most of it has been the experiential, most of circumstantial and experiential, and where things evolve, maybe we were not prepared to face it. But the ability to bounce back, ability to handle this kind of challenging situations, and whereas absolutely uncertainty, what we call a lot of negativism, and a lot of threat to human life, and what we call maintaining the social order and the continuity and the economic activity, everything became a questionable mark. So therefore, bouncing back and and to be resilient in this kind of situation, according to me, is the fundamental requirement for survival, not only for the society, but also for the corporate world, but also for any leader. And therefore, the responsibility on the leaderships have become multifold, which we never thought of that it will really get to that kind of level. Now, this is a quote which German philosopher way back in late 80s, late 1870s BC, he had given a statement that he who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. So basically, this statement is so powerful. Whenever I see this statement, it gives me a lot of motivation that whatever VUCA world we go through, and what type of generational leader he may belong to. But I think if there is a purpose, there is a goal behind him, and the strong belief that this will pass on, and I'll be able to handle it, and the purpose that will really give him the strength. And this statement is most appropriate at all times, and more so in the current times. Now, what are its implications? This VUCA world, as I saw it, that it was there at the economic level from time to time. Maybe earlier it was happening every 30 to 40 years. It shrunk to, it started happening every 10 years. Then it shrunk to every 2-3 years. And now we do not know, how it will happen and what kind of scale and size it will bring in terms of its impact and the consequences. So therefore, the VUCA is going to stay. This uncertainty and the challenges of it are going to stay. And how do we really manage this situation? Anticipation is out of our realm of imagination now. So as it comes, we have to, how do we really develop the dhartiva, that emotional and mental toughness, and the confidence and capability that yes, we will, and the possibility and what we call, and the belief that we will be able to overcome it. So today, if you see, we do not need only one leader in the corporate world, to be very specific, but we need leadership at all levels. This importance was there all the time, but it has become much more important now in the present context. So therefore, maybe some leaders are born, they may be entering our corporate world. Maybe we do not need to invest on them, than others, but definitely there is requirement of a planned strategic interventions to develop leaders at all levels, and then to bring them and develop that emotional intelligence and social intelligence in them to become more agile and flexible, and not only give a belief in an empathetic manner to others that yes, we can survive, we can restore normalcy, and then we grow, and and then we take all others in the growth path. So that is the challenge for the next generations. Are they really prepared? Are they the kind of milieu they are coming, the kind of background, social background they were coming? Probably they are coming from a especially from the cities or the middle class that today's generations are coming. Like Madam said in the beginning, they have the technologically very much equipped. They are very informative. They know what to be done. They are very independent in terms of decision making. Maybe they are very clear what they would like to do. So therefore, how to channelize those, but on the social and on emotional side, probably some of the aspects that the collective social life used to bring, or the non-nuclear family community living used to bring, probably is lacking. So therefore, when they are entering the workforce, they are very informative, they are very analytical, they are technologically very savvy. So probably we may not have to bother about that, and they are also startup mentality, and they would like to achieve much more than at a very young age than we used to think of. So therefore, how to really take them along and create leaders to make and they do not want to stay for a long time. They would like to, in the corporate world. And how do we, the next generation or the current generation of leaders, accept them, their thought process, and then create a semblance of what we call tranquility or the order in the decision making and thinking process, so that they are also accepted. And I remember in one of my company, to accept this new generation of people, just to that they will work with us for 1 year or 2 years. Took us 2-3 years time to sell this to the senior management. Don't worry, let us bring them, even if they stay there for 2 years, that is good enough for us. So therefore, this is a challenge. This is a new kind of challenge. Developing leaders has always remained a challenge. Some of the approaches are very common, probably that is going to stay. Some of the approaches we have to continuously disrupt and take input from them, involve them, and then initiate programs. Now, when we talk of resilience, I think one of the most important competency, and the requirement for everyone to survive and grow. So, Walt Disney, in the movie, they said in '98 that flower that blooms in adversity is the rarest and most beautiful of all. So, in this VUCA world, the people, those who are going through this situation, I feel that they will experience the leadership subject much more than, and those who are coming to the forefront and handling this, they will have much more confidence than any others who are not experiencing this difficulty phase. So as I said, the competencies for these leaders, next generation leaders, continuously would be on the mental and emotional side, the power to come back, power to bounce back, managing failure. Probably, if some of the examples that I see in my, what we call family and near close family circles, I think they believe that before entering they are successful, right? And everyone wants to achieve success before the age of 30, and everyone wants to start a startup. Everybody wants to become a CEO and MD at the age of 35 or 38, or not even, they don't talk about 40. Whenever I interact with any of the graduate engineers or management trainee, they say that okay, by 34, 35 we would like to department head, and maybe in another 3-4 years we would like to become the CEO and managing director. So the how to channelize these aspirations and high expectations, high achievement orientation of these generations, and they do not want, they fail, they are already given, they do not want to fail at all. So how to manage this? But they fail actually. There many of them are failing, many of them are getting into different kind of scenario. So managing failure. And now the social milieu that they're coming up, all these generations, individualistic approach, nuclear family, lot of pamperedness, lot of what we call, already we believe that we are meant to go for branded institutes, and therefore we are the IIM and IITs or maybe NITs and such kind of brands. So we are not supposed to do all these things. So collaborations, probably the way it was there in the other social systems of India, it is breaking down. And then how to make them more collaborative and network exist. I think in this environment, it is an interdependent world. When this COVID things happened, we know how the supply chain of emotions, supply chain of entire work, medical system, right from everything. So it is a collaborative, and every day there has to be some innovations through networking. Agility and improvisations, I need not have to talk about it, because you have to have the ability to survive. And then after you restore and revive the difficult situation and the uncertainty that we are seeing now, and then how to move to the growth path. And absolutely, responsibility and dependability is age-old phenomena that has to stay. But besides that, as I understand, is the empathy had never become important than it has become now. Concern for others, concern for others' health, well-being, and what we call economic survival is one of the very fundamental requirement of not only for self, but also for your near and dear ones, but for also your close circles, for your team members. I think that is one of the most important subject of building empathy for others. And adaptable to technology, there I think they will be good. The next generation leaders are extremely good. Maybe we have to use them as a reverse mentor for some of the middle and other senior generation leaders. We can channelize them and know how to, and therefore in a difficult situation, how to survive and grow, because this quarter to quarter living, especially in the corporate world, or the analyst questioning the CEO and CFO is not going to go, it will remain. So therefore, with all these variables, with all these difficult scenarios that we are witnessing, and probably this is going to stay, as I understand and anticipate. So how to really, build the entire leadership architecture so that the leadership at all levels are built. Now failure, I think there cannot be any better example than after 11 times of failure, although it is a very old, but it is very classical. I think there may not be a better example than this example of Abraham Lincoln. After failing 11 times, he remained a historic figure of becoming the president of USA. He got elected, but also he was the person who had that mental and emotional, what we call depth in his persona, which really took him through the one of the most greatest moral, constitutional, and political crises in the American Civil War. So we really, this is just an example. There are many examples, maybe in our country context, same level of or maybe better level of sagacity is there in Mahatma Gandhi, and he has already done it, and that was again a great example of mental strength and willpower. So how to bounce back? So bouncing back, if I have to recommend some tools or some processes that one can follow, I think, and that I learned from this COVID, that we have to accept it. There is no way out. You cannot challenge it. You cannot disrupt it. You have to accept it as it is, because it is absolutely of different magnitude. COVID may be one example, but economic disruption also is one example. Digital or technology disruption is another example. So everywhere you have to accept it. And then I think leaders, when they are talking of surviving and grow, I think the purpose will remain as a central theme around which the leadership subject has to be renewed, has to be always talked about. And I think innovation and ingenuity, especially individual ingenuity, will play a big role in terms of what we call the developing the next level of leaders. This is a very common theme. I think this is going on for a while, the 70, 20, and 10 principles. This may become 95 and 5, or maybe 80, 10, and 10, from situation to situation. But what I would like to emphasize here is that the learning and developing through exposure, through experience, through generational and environmental incubation of ideas, and what we call exchange of thoughts and ideas, and then pushing people into or throwing people into difficult situations. It was existing for a long time, and this will continue to remain, because the uncertainty and the difficulty terrain and the time is going to stay, and sometimes it will increase. The cyclical nature of what we call the social and economic upheaval will the cyclical nature of this will further shrink down, and therefore increasing the challenges, and therefore the mental stamina and emotional intelligence will be the key while we develop the next generation of leaders. There are some people who are really good in that. So this first piece will become the most important. In India, if you see, right from public sector to private sectors, there are a lot of CEOs who adopt and give opportunity to young management trainees and young managers, and they take them under their wings. They put them in their offices, and that has even Mr. Khandelwal, when he did the research, he found that I think that is probably the best approach of developing leaders. Taking them, and so that they know the entire perspective, they know the whole macro strategic view, and they have an outside-in perspective, and they know what is happening and how decisions are taken. So at early age, if you can expose to them various scenarios, do a dialoguing, both of their aspirations, their challenges, and give them some emotional and empathy coach, who is going to develop in them then stability and steadiness of their emotions and psychological balance. That will become the key part of developing next level of leaders. Subject matter expertise, I think they are very informative. They know a lot of stuffs, and only some perspectives building need to be there. So therefore, this 20 and 10 will get more shrunk, and it will become more individualized, assessment based, and that assessment has to be a 360-degree way of approach, and keeping that individual into the center part of it. So this is one, I think, my thought. I thought I'll share to this group of eminent participants so that we can discuss this more. This is just a thought process. So the next question comes when we talk of developing leaders. So the responsibility also lies on us. Responsibility lies on the present leaders. You know, the kind of environment, this freedom and space is always there. The people, those who are independent, those who are more capable than others, those who want to take more responsibility and lead from the front, they always need some space, and then they are more risk-taking. But today it is much more. So therefore, are we giving that freedom and space to them? Next generation leaders would need much more. So the value and respect is also would be a great demand. So they need to be valued, they need to be respected. Instant gratification, although they need, but in the long run, all of these fellows would require a different kind of respect, different kind of value for their work, complete alignment. You know, the contributions that their line of sight has to remain, and the encouragement, support from the organizations when they are taking that challenge. Challenging assignments and exposure, as I said in my previous slide on the 70-80 thing that I was talking about, that will continue to remain. And sooner we give them, it is better for them. Personal attention, that means I hear today when I interact with a lot of young generations, they tell us that, you know, very few people spend time with them. Maybe a deprivation, social deprivation, but you have to spend little more time in talking to them. Personal attention will remain a focus for every leaders to do. Of course, coaching, individualized learning environment, I talked about it, more and more individualized, based on individual needs. Our, you know, when we develop next level leaders, we have to do that. And differentiated rewards and recognitions, they are very conscious. Maybe in our times, we operated in an environment of what we call, you know, in a little more of democratic environment, even if it is some rewards and recognitions are not there, or it was there at a low level, we were able to motivate ourselves. But this set of leader, this set of generation, they will question this more and more. Now on the next, some of the trends that I had read some of the reports like SHRM report. The trends on future of next generation leaders development will be outside in perspective. This will continue to remain and seek the attention of everyone. Collective leadership, collective wisdom, leadership at all levels, only on, not dependent only one fellow who is there, who can rescue everyone. That philosophy or that approach will not work. It has to be multidisciplinary and cross-functional solutions. So therefore, collaborative working, as I said when I was talking about the competency. Coaching builds muscle memory, especially the emotional and empathy. Coaching will occupy higher space, and you know that become the culture and the norms in future. Learnings will be more and more individualized, you know, and blend. Of course, it is there, but whether it is blend or whether it is classroom or online or offline, there has to be experiential learning, more individual, more coaching focus, more discussion and dialogue will continue to occupy higher space. Purpose, of course, there is no debate on it. And the learning, of course, bite-sized and on-demand solutions means you should anticipate what kind of you know, requirements they will have and accordingly design your interventions. Looking into all these aspects, I thought one slide I will share on some of the work that we are doing. Larsen Toubro as a group has a 7-step development, leadership development process. I think in some of the ISTD best practices session, our corporate HR had participated in that and shared in ISTD forum. So maybe some of the panelists would have gone through that. But taking cue from that and taking cue from the changes and the requirements, changing times and the requirements that is there in our heavy civil infrastructure, we have formulated and designed an interventions which is a 4-step model, we are calling it, and all the elements that I said. So it is an integrated model. So the base level is for the engineers, those who are entering, and some of the fellows who are, what we call, found to be absolutely having strong vertebra in terms of their performance, in terms of their thinking level. So they are being identified. We are calling it as Ekalabya Gurukul. We have tied up with, right from the day one, we are wanting to, for example, our heavy civil infrastructure is building a lot of big infrastructure projects, right from bullet train to Mumbai Trans-Harbour Link, maybe rapid rail in Delhi, and nuclear power plants, and then your coastal road in Mumbai, and maybe underground metro, Chennai metro now. So all these projects that we are doing, there is a huge demand of what we call completing them on time in a safe environment, maintaining quality, and environmental and other all considerations have to be complied. So therefore, the talent of the young leaders, future leaders that we have to build, the mega leadership or the handling a mega project after 10 years has to be told to them, and they have to be developed from today onward. So they have to also think when they are working in a mega project environment, they have to think that they have also the shared responsibility to build such mega infrastructure of the country, the challenges and what they need to do. So therefore, this Ekalabya Gurukul that we have identified. So through a management aptitude test, we identify how do they are in terms of their different what we call thinking level, and then we do a reflection center. Reflection center is all about understanding their aspirations, so that we align the interventions the individualized way that I said, right? So in the future, whether they have that enthusiasm to move to that career path, so that it is a forum where platform where they deliberate and reflect on their career aspirations, and then they go through this IMB program, and then we are giving them some executive what we call executive presence and the outdoor what we call the collaborative and the team working interventions, and there are some academy through which the presentations and action learnings are happening, and there is a career planning and review. And the young managers, who are young engineers of 4 to 5 years, now 3 to 5 years, you will go through this. Already this module has been launched. Hello. So then next level is our Arjuna Gurukul. This is a middle level program for managers, those who are 7 to 12 years kind of 7 to 12 years kind of time frame they have. Again, they are going through a cognitive ability reflection center, and then the program that they are attending, and they have an individual scorecard and coaching. And especially our entire efforts is, yes, giving them some knowledge, management input, but primarily 60% of the input is on behavioral and the emotional part. And third is with IIM Bangalore, which is for the senior leaders, and then the coaching and both by industry leaders and by the senior leaders at the level of director also. So this architecture that we have built and we have rolled out is purely based on our own experience, our own business requirement, and also the current state of situation and the demands. I am quite hopeful that this model, when we roll it out over a period of time, maybe from last year we have started it in our independent company, and for a period of 4 to 5 years, if it is rolled and implemented, I'm quite sure the next generation leaders that our independent company will be requiring will come from these interventions. So we'll continuously look at how to improvise this and learn from the feedback of the participants, and would like to improve this. So this was some of my thought process of developing next level leaders. It is a very challenging task. It is not that easy. And even if we do this kind of interventions, still I am not very sure whether really it will create the leaders that we want. But definitely an attempt we have made. I am sure it will give something something more than if we would not have done it. So with this thought, I will end my what we call presentations, and we can I am open for any discussions.
Right. So thank you very much, Mr. Das. And yes, it's question time now. So we have 3-4 questions on the chat box, which I'll just read to you.
Should I stop my presentations?
I think you can. Yes, you can stop. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll go one by one. So the first question, although you did talk about it, but nevertheless, this question is by Dr. Busrai, and he's saying very good presentation, thank you, and he's referring to the 70-20-10 concept which you talked about. So he's saying that does L&D have any initiative for retraining seniors in aged managers, and how to deal with the millennial workforce?
Sir, yes, we have the 7 steps that I was talking of. The steps 6 and 7 are primarily for the senior leaders, vice president, executive vice president, or those who are managing businesses. So they go through those advanced management program, and then some of them also go through the mentoring sessions with our group chairman, M. Naik. So those interventions are in place, and of course they also attend a lot of seminars and a lot of lectures and interactions with a lot of professors from reputed universities, mentoring sessions from outsiders, coach. So all these elements are there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. The second question is by Mr. Ajay Sahu, and he's saying fantastic presentation. He's saying that somewhere during your talk, you mentioned that many Gen Z stroke millennials stay with the company only for 2-3 years and you're okay with it. If so, how to develop them for leadership positions? And if you do, and then they leave, what next?
No, this is a very important and relevant questions. What we see is when we are doing this executive trainee program, either a graduate executive trainee or a management trainee, some people leave for obvious reasons, maybe for higher studies, or maybe some locational issues or personal issues. But over a period of time, even if the 30, 40%, 50% people stay, I think our investment, whatever return on investment is, we get the return on investment. The subject that I was saying, accepting such kind of attitude in one of my company, not in the current company, in one of my company, people at the senior level were not prepared to induct such people who are there to stay with, to work for 2 to 3 years, especially in the, it was in the e-commerce space and the startup space. So people are not accepted, but you need to survive and grow in that kind of environment. You need such people who will come for 2 years. They will disrupt and they will come some breakthrough ideas. You need that kind of talent. My point was on that aspect. But as far as our company is concerned, yes, our major means of inducting talent is graduate executive trainee and management trainee and postgraduate trainee. There are attritions, maybe more than what we feel or we believe. But still the people, those who are staying back, we are trying to focus them. And these interventions that I was telling at the bottom of the pyramid, the Eklavya Gurukul, is meant to arrest them, give them a feeling. It was not there to give them a feeling that we are interested in them. We are interested to channelize and grow them. And I am quite sure that this will help to retain and build the talent.
Okay. Right. Thank you. So we have another question by Mr. Manish, and he's asking that does the meaning of VUCA in international terminology relevant to our nation also? If yes, then how?
This VUCA terminology you are talking of?
Yeah, that's right.
No,
Is it relevant to India also?
Everyone. It is relevant to individual, to families, to society, to corporates. This uncertainty and what we call this difficulty situations are there for everyone to. It is going to stay. Even if the current COVID, if we take an example, even if it is still continuing, but the damage and loss it has caused to the mind and moral and motivation and the family, what you call entire environment, the school and society and your economic, corporate, I think it's going to stay. The cascading effect is going to stay. And if let us say third surge is going to come, it will further devastate at the emotional and psychological level. And that's the bigger loss rather than the disease itself. And the pressure on the health infrastructure, everything we are all experiencing. So it applies to India, it applies to individual, everyone. So how to prepare? How do we channelize ourselves to face these kind of challenges and survive? Is the competencies and is the area that everyone has to think about.
Right. Okay. Right. So, Mr. Das, the next question is by Dr. Mamta Mahapatra. She's saying that very insightful talk. In the context of so-called war for talent, organizations today are often faced with a dilemma, build versus buy. What is L&T philosophy?
No, our philosophy is mixed philosophy, but bulk of it, building talent and building our own timber through the trainee programs, graduate executive trainee, diploma trainee, postgraduate trainee, management trainee, frontline FLS trainee. So we are bulk of our requirement comes through that. But that is not good enough the way we are growing in certain independent companies. So therefore, we are also depending on talent from outside, from Indian market, from Middle East, Singapore, Malaysia, and some of the countries of Middle East, and also European market, especially on the area where today a lot of infrastructure projects that are happening in our country happening for the first time. For example, bullet train project. And we have never done, no one in the country has done a 504 kilometer of what we call metro rail with underground tunnel near Bombay with a 40 meters deep below the sea, the underground tunnel will happen. So therefore, these are areas, it needs expertise from outside the country, especially expatriate talent who has the experience of doing it. So we are on certain areas where we do not have that competency and expertise. They are dependent on outside, but they are very limited. But the war for talent or the talent market as such, for example, prior to this, I was working in logistics sector. That market was, if you go for a niche talent in the e-commerce space, people are not there, right? Similarly, in the infrastructure sector, the kind of infrastructure it is happening, we may get in buildings and materials and factories, that kind of talent, but core hardcore infrastructure talents are limited. Although we are Larsen & Toubro occupies a 70-75% kind of market share, talents are not there. So definitely we have also going through some challenges, but our focus is on developing talent and growing them through training and development. So for example, we have set up a Tunneling Excellence Academy. So it can't be done. Outside it's not there. So we have to chisel our own talent. So that approach we are following.
Right. Thank you. So next is question is by Mr. Colonel Goshal, and he's saying that what do you propose to hold on the younger leaders once they are trained? Hold on to the younger leaders once they are trained, so that they don't leave the company.
I think we have some strategic advantage being a leader in the EPC sector in terms of employer brand and some of the policies that we have in terms of what we call retention, and we have some equity plan for such talents, right? And last but not the least, what I'll say is then they have a line of sight in terms of their career growth. They know that this is the company where most respected, and they get the best of the exposure, best of the projects come to this company, and we have a fantastic training and development programs. We have good medical and welfare programs, and they know that they will grow in this company. Very few of them who may be getting opportunity in some of the other infrastructure companies, but what happens is many of them are wanting to come back to us. But at that, so at different points of time, they will go, but we encourage that up to once or twice. If they have to come back, we take them.
Okay, right. Thanks. So Yashwant Chauhan wants to know that he's saying great insights, Mr. Das. And do you think that today's organizations in the context of future of work are looking for millennial mindset or perennial mindset? Please share your thoughts on the same.
I think this subject is being debated in very widely and intensely in all walks of life, especially in the corporate world. These millennials, what kind of requirements they have, organizations probably have to do that if they want to get the productivity and get the best out from there. For example, they need more freedom, they need more line of sight, they need a little more space. I think some of the areas that I talked about, and they're all project based work, right? So it may work in some of the companies and businesses, but as far as our business is concerned, we are a EPC player, infrastructure company, project management company, and these projects, take 4 or 5 years time. So the learning and engineering mindset is required. So the learning will not happen in a year or 2 years. It requires a continuity. Maybe one project you complete 5 years, then another set of project you do for another 5 years. Then only you get that business intelligence and what we call the managerial and leadership capability. So it may not work in our kind of context because the projects are located in interior place. So the typical policies and environment that are created in, let us say, in Larsen & Toubro's infotech businesses, that those policies may not work in our case. But while we are there, how to encourage, how to give them those learning orientations, give them that space, give them the individual autonomy, and ask ideas and suggestions from them. Those aspects we are taking care. But we have to be realistic. We are a project and EPC companies. So the kind of things, rule policies will work in new age companies will not work in our context.
Okay.
So we are continuously communicating to people. Some of them, many of them know about it. And some of them who do not know, maybe I don't know how they are perceiving it.
Okay. So there is one question by Pratima D. Metkar. The question is not very clear. So I would request her to unmute herself and ask the question, please.
Yeah, no, I saw one question by Dr. Akhil Bursai. Sir, on the 3D printing, we have started it just as a prototype pilot we are doing in Kanchipuram. We have a huge facility there. But based on that result, definitely our company is very keen to venture into that area. And on digitalization and all those, we have a lot of initiatives. I think in the EPC sector, our company is the pioneer in terms of getting into digitalization.
Okay, thank you. So, is Pratima there? Could she please unmute and ask the question?
Madam, Mr. Manish has raised his hand.
Okay, so please, Manish, go ahead.
Manish ji, unmute and ask your question. Pratima ji, go ahead.
I think these are the questions, but now, I would request any of the guests, if they want to say something, if they have any question, they want to, Colonel Lamba, you're smiling. You have a question? Please unmute yourself, Colonel Saab.
Questions or maybe building on the theme that we discussed, that will be a learning for me.
आलोक जी, कुछ लोग शिकायत कर रहे हैं कि वो अनम्यूट नहीं कर पा रहे, जरा चेक करिए.
Manish is unable to unmute himself.
Sorry, yeah, now they can, sir.
Manish, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you so very much. Mr. Das, what you have given, and L&T as a pioneer and a leader into their own domain, it's congratulations with the right organization at the right place. But for the VUCA, I'm still feeling it irrelevant in the international context, in the meaning of the Indian economy. Because the VUCA, when it started into the international context, it was the Cold War ending. There was a mass production was ending. They were looking for the market. The challenges the Western world and the American world was facing, it is not yet with the India. We have started, our startup has been started with the IT, infrastructure, lot to be done. We have to get many production areas yet. So how it can be relevant into the same terminology? This was my question. Because if we make the newer comers train on the wrong parameters, then as the Stephen Covey says कि अगर आपने सीढ़ी गलत जगह पे लगा दिया तो कितना भी तेज चढ़ लेंगे हम नहीं बढ़ पाएंगे. क्योंकि वूका हो सकता है उनके लिए अलग हो, वूका तो हमेशा से ही है, पर हमारे लिए वो इंटरनेशनल डेफिनेशन में रेलिवेंट है या नहीं है, ये थोड़ा सा चैलेंज लगता है जी आज भी. थैंक यू सो वेरी मच. आई हैव जस्ट क्लियर्ड माय क्वेश्चन.
Okay.
You want me to respond, sir? No, I agree with you. It is a global or an international concept. But what I was trying to draw the analogy or the insight from that is this uncertainty and the challenges of uncertainty will is applying to our context as well. Especially it has become very prevalent because of the COVID situations.
BD, are you able to hear me? Pratima?
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
BD, wonderful presentation. My congratulations to you for this presentation and a lot of positive insights. I have one question. Are you facing the challenges of driving these programs even in virtual world or in the hybrid world?
Sir, when it started, yes, we were facing a lot of challenges in terms of connectivity, in terms of wavelength, in terms of mindset, in terms of availability. So we had a big doubt in terms of assimilating the learnings. And
so how you are coping up?
So now, over a period of time, when we have driven everything and this surge continued, first phase, second phase, and I think there is a greater acceptance of these programs. Initially, even the institutions where we were tying up, they did not have this facility, including the IIMs. Now they are also better equipped in terms of what we call the online infrastructure and their faculties available, access of online infrastructure. Those things has dramatically have improved. Today there is a greater acceptance, and sometimes we feel that had COVID not come, we would not have explored this alternative way of reaching out to people. in a single program, we are able to reach out to larger mass. Communications has become so easier. And of course, effectiveness may not be as good as what we used to do in the classroom. So
Sure.
there, blend is going to, this blend of online and offline probably will continue with a larger share of online on the entire learning architecture.
Thank you, BD. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Madam, may I ask a question?
Yes,
Hello,
please
ma'am.
go ahead, Colonel.
Uh,
Please.
is he there? He's not coming on the line.
No, he is very much there. You please ask your question.
Yes,
He's
sir.
Okay.
there.
Wonderful. Hello, sir.
Yes,
It
sir.
was
Yes, sir.
very special listening to you. I just would like to seek a point of view that in every interview, when we ask these young boys coming up, and where do you see yourself after 5 years? I find they have very ambitious plan for themselves. That makes them very self-centric also. So how do you go about with the Eklav level of your Gurukul, changing their mind from individuality to a collective factor where group activities take place? How do you what efforts do you make to change this attitudinal change you want to bring into that?
Yeah, I think, yes, this is a very appropriate and very relevant questions for the time. They are coming from a different mindset, but we have made an attempt to disseminate the need of this collaboration in our, the behavioral input that we are giving from the, input point of view. So the lectures and the assessments are imbibed accordingly. Second aspect is we have built more and more action learning programs. And these action learning programs are the group work, which they are all doing under the guidance of a professor, and I am, and also an external professor and also an internal person. And then we are making them to present, and especially in terms of solutioning part of it. And then we are making them part of implementing those solutions.
Okay, is that makes them to develop a kind of belongingness that they then don't leave your organization?
That will develop in them that the feedback that we have got for this initiative is that they are very excited that management is giving them this opportunity at a very early age.
Okay.
And they had some of them, those who are coming from government colleges or maybe NITs, they were not expecting that they will get some input from professors of IIM Bangalore at a very early age, right? So that is making them feel important, making them feel that yes, at a young age they are being taught how to take higher responsibilities. So from that initial response, I feel that it is going in the right direction, but we have to run it at least 4 or 5 batches, then only we will come to know the final impact of it.
So that is your investment, you think will develop belongingness?
Definitely, it will help. It will help.
Thank you so much.
I am not very sure about it, because that is why I said it needs a little bit of some more run of the programs.
Got it. Thank
May
you so
I
much.
clear my question, ma'am?
Yeah, please go ahead, Pratima.
Yeah. Actually, good evening, sir. You have such a great insights. Actually, my question is because I'm a newcomer in this field, with being a great passion of to become a leader and HRD professional. So from the first day when I entered and chose this profession, I have always faced the conception that if you want to become a leader or an HRD professional, you have to or must have a high kind of academic background, what we call is an brands. So is it a leadership or HRD is concerned with brands only? If yes, then why did so? Because if we always have skill-based leaders or HR, and if it's not, then why is it actually? Will you please clear my misconceptions, please?
This subject is a very big subject to discuss and deliberate. As far as human resource development is concerned, it is a very vast field. There is no end to it. And yes, you can start, but it is a very, what we call very all-encompassing and no end to the subject, because it talks of human development, potential, possibilities and so many subjects. There is no end to it. But if you are to become a human resource development specialist, my recommendation and suggestion would be that you please develop the habit of more reading in the subject. You work under a proper senior guide or a profession in a corporate, and implement, after you understand, implement those concepts, what you call yourself, because human resource is like a laboratory, as I say. It is like a chemistry laboratory. Human resource, when you enter, it is a laboratory. There is huge amount of experimentation you can do, but there is a structured process. For example, you want to do a organizational development, there are different steps into it. So end to end, if you do and spend time in that, definitely it will bring some expertise in you. So one or two area you should focus on and become an expert in that. The way human resource field is evolving, it will not remain as a generalist. With technology and digitalization and self-empowerment, concepts are coming. So more and more it will get into the specialization areas. Okay, if you want to become known as a professional and get satisfaction out of it. So develop that expertise and specialization from the beginning itself, so that when people ask, what is your expertise? Today, I ask a lot of people, both in human resource and engineers and everyone I ask, I hear very, very, very few and faint response from them. People struggle to tell them what is their expertise. So human resource development will evolve into an expertise field. Please develop right from the beginning, depending on your interest and aspiration. Second question that you said on leadership. Leadership, I think it's not at all linked to any education or brand or degree or qualifications. That may be just a, something that you have acquired to enhance your perspectives and a passport to get an employment, or do something more in terms of education. But leadership all about, what next, the risk taking. You are thinking ahead of others. Leadership was all about challenging yourself, expanding your own horizon and thinking something different. And leadership all about leading others, and without telling you to do it. You need not wait that somebody will vest on leadership on you. You see a situation and you turn it around. You do something, something better than your peers. So leadership is all about what next. Leadership all about risk taking. Leadership is all about challenging things, and and self-belief that I can be a savior of 10, 15, 20 people. So leadership is something different. It cannot be learned in the classroom. Maybe you can learn the concept, but you have to experiment it. You have to drive yourself. Like, as long as you don't drive a car or you don't become a driver. So similarly, it is absolutely a very natural process, but you have to experiment and try it out.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much, sir. Great.
Thank you. So many questions, and now, I'm seeing that Professor S.K. Puri and Mr. Dabas, many more people have joined. And anybody would like to say something before we wind up?
I don't have anything to say.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming, Professor. Okay. All right. So with this, we come to the end. And I think it was really a wonderful session. So much of interaction, so many questions, very insightful. Thank you so much, Mr. Das. And
thank you, ma'am.
I would now like to invite Mr. D.V. Shastri to give a formal vote of thanks. Mr. Shastri, sir.
Thank you so much. At the outset, I would like to express my gratitude and thanks to Mr. Bhartanu Das. And each one of us can make out that whatever he was speaking, it was from the core of his heart, and it was out of his own experience. That much everybody can make out, because making a PowerPoint presentation, everyone can do that. But whatever comes from your experience, that is also visible. And he has told very good things about his experience with the development of leadership, but that can be summed up by saying that leadership is nothing but owning. If you have a sense of ownership, then everything else follows. And in this context, therefore, it is very necessary that leadership is by example. That means those who are responsible for running the affairs of the company, the board of directors and the CEO, they must demonstrate leadership by conduct. It is not by lecturing that we can teach leadership to the youngsters, but we ourselves have to demonstrate. So in this context, I quote a very short thing that once a CFO asked the CHRO that we are spending so much money, what if we train them and then leave? So then CHRO said, what if we do not train them and they stay with us?
Yeah.
So the CFO was speechless. So these are the things which are to be understood by the top management. So anyway, thank you very much, Mr. Bartanu. And I am equally thankful to the participants and the senior people like Professor Puri, Dr. Dabas, Dr. Akil Basrai, Mr. Deepak Bharara, Mr. Ashish Gakre, and also there were members from other chapters of ISTD like Dr. Mahesh Kumar Maheshwari, Mr. Chandrasekhar Kothawade, Madam Medha Bhaire Mane, the young lady Pratibha Metkar, Shashwat Deep Adhikari, and many others. And from our own chapter, we had the regular participants like Mr. Ashish Ghosh, Colonel Ashok Ghoshal, Colonel J.S. Lamba, Madam Mamta Mahapatra, Mr. Manish. He writes with his name, Manish the Mindful Chef. That is also very interesting. And so I am thankful to each one of the participants, and I, on my own behalf and on behalf of Delhi chapter consisting of Mr. Mukesh Jain, our chairperson, Mr. Ajay Sahu, our honorary secretary, and our lecture series coordinator, Madam Pratima Kaushal, Mr. Y.N. Kaushal, and all those who have contributed in organizing this particular session. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Namaste.
Thank you so much.
Bartanu,
you.
good presentation, Bartanu. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you,
Very
Puri.
nice.
Very well done, sir. Very well
Thank
done.
you so much.